If somebody would have told me in 2022, 2021, we would be dealing with water shortages, food shortages, empty shelves, $6, $7, $8, $10 a gallon for gas, diesel shortages, baby formula shortages. If somebody would have warned me about this back in 2018, 2019, I would never believe them. Unbelievable. But what I do think is interesting is how I used to be made fun of when I was younger, how I used to always pay attention to my gas mileage. I used to just try to be very efficient when preparing whatever I'm going to do for the day. You know, like whenever I'm meal prepping for the day, I try to be healthy. So I'm always meal prepping, putting my food together, and I generally will have everything that I need to prepare in the pantry so that I could minimize how frequently I'm eating out. I'd rather prepare my meals, prepare my food at home, and I would generally pack Tupperware. That way I could store my food throughout the day when I would go to work. And I would always be made fun of how cheap I am, live a little bit. And for me, I enjoyed home cooked food. I enjoyed not having to depend on having to drive away, wasting gas, wasting time, wasting energy, going to these different restaurants and giving away my money when I could make food and store it way more efficiently, way more effectively, and of higher nutritional value by just simply preparing it at home. So now that we have $6 a gallon gas, $8 a gallon gas, $10 a gallon gas, we're expecting that, here to come. I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who used to make fun of me are not doing that right now. And things are only going to get worse, you guys. And it's just crazy. We talked about baby formula shortages not too long ago, and it's only getting worse, right? Because a lot of the parents, they're coming out and they're, and I'm not saying that this is the majority of the people who are impacted at the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, which had thousands of airline flight delays as a result of pilot shortages, overbooking. The company Delta admitted in an article that I read recently that they had overbooked the flights compared to what they knew that they could handle. Now, I don't know if that's a common practice. I don't know if that's, corporate greed at its finest, attempting to extract as much profits out of the consumer as possible, or maybe they overbook because they expect a certain number of people to cancel their flights. I don't really know, but many families were stranded at these airports for long periods of time. In fact, several of them are still there now. And I'm not sure if you guys heard, but there were 3 earthquakes reported in Georgia. Like I can't make this stuff up, you guys. 3 earthquakes were reported in Georgia in 1 week, and the most recent one occurred just a couple of days ago on Saturday. And I'm not saying that this is a direct result, but I was reading into these water main breaks, and it says here that main breaks happen due to various reasons and are a normal part of a water utility. But more importantly, pay attention to this one here. It says here that temperature changes or overly dry or overly wet weather can cause the ground to shift. So it sounds like it's the shifting of the ground, and I'm not some type of, I'm no expert here. I'm not a, I forget the specific, I think it's a, some form of an engineer. I forget what type of engineer that studies the earth and the ground and whatnot, but basically it's the shifting of the ground that causes water mains to break. Now, why do we care about that? Well, it says here at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, passengers who came through Concourse B also dealt with a water main break that forced the closure of concessions and bathrooms in the north end of the concourse. Bathrooms and concessions on the south end of the concourse remain open. So now I don't know if the shifting of the ground that was the result of the earthquake that happened in Georgia caused this main break to happen, or is it this abnormally high temperature that we're experiencing here in Georgia right now. It could be any number of things or a combination of all of the above. But if it's these extreme shifts in temperature that's causing these water mains to break, obviously we could potentially see a whole lot more of this happening in the future, especially with these record high temperatures that we've been sustaining for the last several days. Not to mention, water main breaks generally lead to sinkhole situations. So that could be very dangerous if you're driving down the road at, say, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden a sinkhole opens up and your car just drives into a sinkhole, and, you know, let's just say five or six cars follow you into it. A lot of people are not going to survive that. But, you know, things are getting even worse here when we look at, I mean, it's funny because history was one of the most boring subjects in school for me. I feel like school was just school was largely a waste of time. They could have consolidated all the different courses down to a few courses, saved me hours per day and probably years out of my life, and just given me like a condensed version of what was most important, right? But history, being one of the most boring subjects in school, was probably most boring to me because we covered history that I felt was almost entirely irrelevant to me. But it's interesting how history is affecting us today and is allowing us to prepare if we're paying attention. We can see what happens in other countries, and generally speaking, what happens in other countries, if it hasn't happened here yet, it's generally likely to soon occur. Gas rationing is getting closer for Europe. The region is on high alert after Russia made its biggest moves yet to use energy as a weapon. Now, they're rationing, or on the verge of rationing gas and rationing fuel over in Europe, and what happens over there could potentially happen here. Let's just say, you know, one more refinery goes offline. One more refinery goes offline. For some reason, maybe there's a catastrophic pipeline failure somewhere in our oil distribution pathway, and then all of a sudden there's a shortage on gas. Then we may actually see gas rationing here. I mean, that's just one way that we could possibly see it, but there's so many other ways for these crises to happen, and it's we're having so many different 100-year circumstances hit us like all at once. I feel like every 2 weeks some new crisis is hitting us, and it's just unbelievable. You guys let me know if you feel the same way, but the frequency that these things are happening is just unreal to me, right? And speaking of rationing, families ration formula for children as shortage worsens. On Thursday, Claire Holland graduated from 6th grade. It was a happy day. She made the honor roll, blah, blah, blah. But this particular 12-year-old was caught up in the formula shortage that has left countless families across the country on edge. The shortage has even sent some children to the hospital because they can't get enough nutrition. Now, this is big. This shortage is not just affecting infants. It's affecting all of our, a wide age range of our children in this country, and it's just crazy. And it's just, when you think about, let's just take some of the families that I had read about that are stranded at the airport right now as a result of the pilot shortages and the thousands of cancellations that have recently happened and are still ongoing right now at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Many of these families, according to what I read, flew outside of the state to bring in baby formula because they couldn't get it, and maybe they made a vacation out of it. Hey, while we're on vacation, let's stock up on this. Let's stockpile the baby formula while we're out, because these stores in maybe a different region of the United States had the baby formula, while maybe where they live they didn't. So anyway, they can't bring the baby formula through the air terminal, or they can't bring the baby formula through the with or carry-on bags. So they check their bags, because of course the liquid is above, what is it, 4 ounces or something like that. So they check their bags, and are their bags sitting on the tarmac? cooking in this 100-degree temperature out here, or 95-degree temperature outside today. I mean, what's going on? And then what are the families doing while they're waiting? I don't know. Is there in the airports, do they sell baby formula? Because you can't bring that much with you. You can't bring that much liquid with you. So I don't know how the moms and dads, the families, are dealing with these cancellations while they're just kind of sitting waiting for more than 24 hours to be rerouted. It's awful. And so, it's these crises. It's like crisis after crisis just constantly hitting us. It's just unbelievable, you guys. It says here, Delta CEO Ed Bastian made $12.36 million in total compensation last year, which was down slightly from 2020. So this is what he earned in 2021. It says here, Bastian's 2021 total compensation included a $950,000 base salary. Wow. $4.1 million in stock. Now, of course, the $4.1 million in stocks was based on what the stock price was back in 2021 for Delta. So, Delta stock value directly impacts his compensation. And the stock values of these corporations, of these billion-dollar companies, these stock values directly impact the majority of CEOs and C-suite level company CEOs, vice presidents, CIOs, CFOs, and whatnot. So not only is there a fiduciary responsibility for these corporations to ensure that the shareholders are taken care of, they're making sure that they're taking care of themselves. So his compensation goes on to include another $4.1 million. So he already got $4.1 million in stocks, but he got another $4.1 million in stock options, $3 million in incentive pay, and $121,000 in other compensation, according to a late Friday filing with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. So this is public record information, and so it's obvious that there's a clear and direct incentive for these CEOs to focus on making sure that these companies are more profitable and making sure that the stock values, the stock prices go up in price, right? Because their compensation is directly attached to it. In fact, it's, what is this, roughly, I don't have a calculator out, but this is roughly 90% of the stock value, or his compensation is based on the stock performance, the stock price. So it's in these companies' best interest to make sure that the stock performs very well, because if it doesn't, they're going to take a hit. And this is more than likely while the CEO of this particular company, of Delta, his income was slightly down from 2020 because of the stock price. So when we look at these flight cancellations and the pilot shortages, I was just reading just recently how pilots were saying that they were being undercompensated. New pilots being hired are being undercompensated. But at the same time, these companies, these airlines, they're trying to hire more and more pilots to adapt to this pilot shortage, which was somewhat created by the airline, because back in 2020, when the pandemic hit, they incentivized so many pilots to take early retirement packages. So now that the economy is back up and running, it's a combination of these airlines trying to maximize profits by paying new pilots less money, and they're also trying to negotiate getting these pilots in with less training, which is really scary. We talked about that in a recent video. You guys should check that one out. But, so at the end of the day, it's all about big profits for the corporations and big profits for the oil companies, while we keep getting stuck at the pump. Big profits or big price increases at the grocery stores. So guys, if you have the ability, if you have the land, if you can plant food, heck, if you see great deals on food, in certain places, if you can stock up and stockpile and store that food, it's actually a really good investment to store food if you can get food at a decent price that can last long. Because let's just say you can get a 30, 40%, 50% discount on some food that is normally 50% more. You're basically making 50% of your money. And arguably that's a better investment than the stock market or even cryptocurrency right now, because the stock market, if you look at the S&P 500, if you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now, NASDAQ right now, across the board, roughly across the different indices, we're down about 20 to 30%. Cryptocurrency, I mean, if you look at XRP, if you looked at Bitcoin, if you looked at just about any, the big cryptocurrencies right now, if you look at Bitcoin's down $40,000 a coin. Bitcoin was approaching $68,000 a coin less than 12 months ago, and today you can scoop it up for like $20,000 a coin. So anybody who bought it for nearly $70,000 a coin, they're eating it. So it's like food was a better investment. Food and storing food was a better investment than the stock market has been, at least over the last couple of months. So anyway, guys, if you made it this far in the video, definitely drop a I can't even speak today. Made it this far in the video, drop a like for the video. I really appreciate that, you guys. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you guys subscribe to the channel, and I love the community that we're building here. Drop me some comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've got more to share with you guys in my future videos, but for now, we'll say so long and be safe, you guys.